Hi everyone. So today I want to make a little bit of a different video talking about my own ideas that I had like circling in the back of my head to how to improve the game, because we still have a while to go until Diablo 4 comes around, and it's never too late to start working on improving it. So this is just something that I thought might be nice to have, just some daydreaming, and maybe something comes out of it, maybe not, who knows. But I thought that we have a lot of really cool legendary gems in the game, and most of them are actually quite useless. And it really comes down to a few select options that almost every build uses. And well, one thing they all have in common is they're all the really strong offensive choices. And then there's like a few that can be used for some kind of like speed farming builds here and there. And yeah, then you have like a bunch that are maybe some support gems, and well, that's about it. Like there's a lot of gems that are pretty pointless to have in the game, and even those that are being used, I think they could be spiced up a little bit. So here are my ideas, just kind of what it could be, I guess, to balance it out more, to give more options to build your character. There's also a lot of builds that simply lack proper gem options. So you can see this especially on builds that don't want to run a Stricken. When you're doing like a speed farming build with certain combinations, there are simply not really any good legendary gem choices. So sometimes you can kind of squeeze in Bane of the Powerful, for example, as like a DPS choice. But even that is kind of something like you really want to avoid because it's so weak. So not only could it see the buff, but just I think also overall the mechanic is also a little bit too underwhelming for being kind of like an elite killer gem. So there's some points like this, and there's obviously like Mutilation Guard that no one really uses. There's Mirror, which is absolutely pointless, and so on. And well, I think there could be quite a lot of stuff. So let's get started. I have my list of ideas here. It's for every single gem I made a third option that will unlock at level 100. Or in some cases a little bit lower. For example, Boon of the Hoarder maxes out at 50, so I just put it to 50. It doesn't really matter, it was kind of like just getting another effect to make it more interesting. So the numbers are, debatable, and I just figured that, this might be something to give people some options to kind of decide, how they want to build their character, how to optimize it, how they just like playing the game maybe in some cases. So here we go. We have Moratorium to start with. I gave it a third one to give it like a kind of like an offensive choice. It says your damage done is increased by 1% for every 1% of staggered life, up to 100%. So this seems like quite a lot, but you have to see that Moratorium, I think when it's level 150, the buff lasts, I think 8 seconds or so, I don't know exactly, or 13 seconds. It's rather long, but at the same time, you also have to take, around 3 times of your total life in damage to actually stagger that amount. And then, as it starts staggering, it will also start dropping. So you're never really gonna be at this 100%. And I figured that, a value like this might be cool to kind of allow a playstyle where you, you try to take damage on purpose sometimes, even, when you feel like, okay, this is an easy situation, you're not in risk of dying. So you can try to play more offensively by actually taking damage. So might be pretty cool. And obviously you have this chance on kill to clear all staggered damage that also cuts into this offensive value a little bit, and this is why I set the value pretty high. But I think something like this might be quite interesting. We have Bane of the Powerful. This is something that I think is a really missed opportunity for the game. It's kind of like the elite killer gem, and it's just so sad that actually they do exactly the opposite of it. So you try to avoid using this in high tiers because it's so weak, and also because you can't get the effect, because you only get it after killing a pack. So I think that actually enabling these effects, maybe even permanently, just buffing them as well against elite enemies would really help out here, because what is a big problem right now, especially in solo pushing, is that you usually cannot kill elites. So you're lacking elite damage, you're lacking any kind of options to finish elites even when they're like 10% HP. And I think just buffing it in the sense that this gem becomes stronger against elites compared to the rest is actually quite nice. So we have this little bit of the secondary effect, but it's definitely not enough. And just in general, it's a weak choice. So we need something with a little more juice. Bane of the Stricken. This is also a big one. Bane Stricken, just in general, it was created to allow us to somehow kill Rift Guardians because, well, in the game we have area damage, which is also kind of like related to this problem here. And without air damage you cannot kill anything in most cases. So that applies especially to Rift Guardians. And I think that we've had enough of, like 5-minute plus Rift Guardian fights. I think they could be shortened, so we could just juice up this gem a bit, make it apply twice, for example, when you do it well with only one target, and then also not punishing you so severely when you have an ad boss, something like Joker or something that is almost impossible to get good Stricken stacks off because it only applies to one target right now. And if that target is not the boss, then that's a very sad story. So I think this would be a good compromise to just allow it to go to 5 targets, for example. Would also make it, kind of usable in the Rift. Typically, Vayner Trapped does absolutely 0 until you reach the Rift Guardian, and then, like over time you can stack up the damage. So like this, you maybe could even increase the target cap a little bit, just to, kind of give you some options to also solve this elite problem a little bit, where you have these elite targets and then eventually all the trash dies, you have no area damage, and you can't kill off 5% HP blue because you just don't deal damage anymore. But if you, kind of stack up the Stricken a little bit over time, and then the target takes like 100% extra damage after fighting it for a few minutes, that would be pretty nice. So I don't see why not, and would definitely, solve the issues a little bit that we have right now. Then we have Taegook. I think it would be a pretty neat idea, giving it like a movement speed boost. I think Taegook overall is a pretty solid gem for builds that can use it. It has a lot of damage. It's additive damage, not multiplicative, but this is usually fine. You have the armor stack on top of it, so it's a nice combo between like offense and defense. It's simple to use. It's on the character, so everything is good. And I felt like some other nice little bonus, like this movement speed bonus, might be quite nice. Especially for builds that don't move while channeling. So something like Arcane Torrent Wizard or so, they would definitely appreciate having this kind of like speed burst for a little bit. And yeah, I guess for Strafe the Age, you don't really stop channeling for that long. 3 seconds is quite a long time. So I tried to actually avoid making it a really strong choice for these like Whirlwind and Strafe builds, because well, they already benefit quite a lot from Taegook. And I thought that these other channeling builds could be helped out a bit. Yeah. Brood of the Hoarder, I think it would be pretty cool to just give it like a fun effect, like spawning goblins here and there. It could even be some kind of like goblin pack in some cases, or like a bandit shrine effect or whatever. When you're just randomly blasting 50-16 and suddenly stuff goes crazy. Why not? It's fun. Everyone likes killing goblins, so go. Yeah. Wrath of Lightning, typically used for support barbs and maybe for some other really speedy builds like in bounties or so. I think it could also be juiced up a little bit as an actual gem choice, especially for something like speed GR farming where you don't have like really huge pulls, because Wrath of Lightning has a maximum target count of I think 5. So when you have like a really big pull, then obviously you can't stab everything at once. I think something like this where enemies struck take a bit more damage from your attacks could be quite nice, to give people like this option to maybe include it as like a movement speed bonus, but at the same time, not punish you too much for, dropping a full DPS gem. So, a little bit weaker than typical. It only applies to a few targets, but it's something, Then we have Go-Go or Swiftness. I gave it also a movement speed boost a little bit. So I figured, why not, helping out the poor support monks a little bit, or the support barbs, and, whatever builds also might use it, like a Crusader in solo pushing. So, just some other like little speed bonus. I think it goes well along with the theme, and we don't have to make, like every single gem kind of like a really viable DPS choice. And, just this little bonus would probably help out, some builds as well already. So next up we have the Zay's Stern of Vengeance. This is the typical ranged build gem. So the further you are away, the more damage you deal. And well, I think that just in general, ranged builds are a little bit underwhelming. That also has to do again with area damage, because you don't want to stack stuff tightly for area damage. And staying far away from enemies typically kind of goes against that. So juicing up those builds a little bit would definitely help. And I made it so that enemies deal 20% less damage to you based on the proximity. So in that case, it would be like where when they stay far away, they deal less damage to you, so you have another incentive basically to be far away and be at a safe distance and so on. And like this, it can help out those builds a little bit, because typically Zaze is, it's kind of like a main choice for these builds, but at the same time, these builds just in general are typically not really the best, and that has to do with the disadvantages that come from staying at a distance. And there's also like these crazy scenarios where something like in season 19, where Whirlwind Barbs were using Zaze as a melee build, simply because it's like the only decent DPS choice that you have. And when you drop the Stricken. So that's kind of like what I mentioned at the beginning, where you're just lacking options in some cases. Yeah, also part of the reason why I make this video, I guess. Next we have the Mutilation Guard. I think overall this is a pretty cool gem with what it does, but it's simply way too weak. It's kind of like a situational defensive choice, and defensive choices are not really what you want to do in this game. And I think that it has to be buffed up a little bit. So here I just gave it, you deal more damage to close targets. This could be changed a little bit as well, maybe to something that enemies that hit you, or enemies that you have hit recently when they were close to you. I don't know, something like this. Maybe you can make it something even about blocking or dodging attacks or something like that. But I figured that just kind of like some generic bonus for people that kind of want to have like a good combination between strong melee reduction and also dealing a little bit of damage with kind of like their own like close range combat build. I think this would be a nice compromise. If you don't want to go for trapped, or if you don't want to go for esoteric, then you can take this one and it will help you out a little bit for especially the really squishy ones. Esoteric is typically, it's a very curious case here. It's a rather strong gem, and I actually used it as well in some of my runs. I use it on Necromancer right now in season 21. I used it on my Demon Hunter as well, but only because I dropped the Stricken. And I feel like that, to actually make it viable for like proper pushing, I think it needs to have like a little bit of an extra damage component. So I made this here and kind of like stayed with this like elemental theme. And it says that you deal 10% increased damage for each unique element you have taken damage from in the last 30 seconds. And this effect stacks. So, you can get hit by an Arcane Beam, you can get hit by a Thunderstorm, you can get hit by a Plague Ground effect. And, each of them will give you 10% damage. And they kind of like stack on their own, so that 30 seconds after taking poison damage for the last time, one stack drops, and then 30 seconds after taking like thunderstorm damage for the last time, that stack drops, and so on. So it kind of encourages you to think about how you play against elites, maybe even take some damage on purpose, run through that Arcane Beam, whatever, and I think that would be pretty amazing. And probably not really too OP, because in most cases you probably have something like 3 or 4 stacks of this, and then when you have like 5 elite packs, then you probably have everything. So you get like fire, cold, poison, lightning, arcane, and maybe you can even add physical, so it's like 60% or so the maximum. And if you actually reach that, then good for you, but most likely it's going to be much less than that. I figured that making it a long duration would help out a bit to not make it too hectic, to always have to run into some effects or something. But this could be pretty nice, I think. So here we have Simplicity Strength. I think Simplicity Strength overall is a very strong choice for any builder can use it, so it doesn't really need much improvement. I gave it like a very small bonus where you get like a little bit of resource cost reduction. There could be a lot of other things, but I didn't want to buff the generators even more, because it's already such a no-brainer choice for any generator build, and like by far the strongest gem in the game, with both the primary and the secondary effects being completely nuts. So just could be something else here. I don't really care too much. Vayner Trapped, same here. It's kind of like one of the main choices. I figured that even though I didn't really want to buff it, I figured like a small nice effect would be cool, where maybe you play to the strengths of this gem, where you just apply like a debuff after consecutively slowing enemies, and kind of like giving an incentive to stay close to your enemies like this. Boyarsky's Chip, I mean, this is a Thorns only gem. That is fine, it's like it's the own niche, so I just gave it like another like AoE Thorns proc, a little bit similar to the braces that you can get from Act 1, the bounties. And I figured, why the hell not? AoE clear is definitely what Thorns builds need anyway, so just go. Really nice gem. This is actually the only one where I took 2 options, and I just couldn't decide which one to take. So we have this here, and right now this gem has never been used ever since Necromancer came out, and before that it has not been used for even longer than that. So it's been years essentially, and it was also maybe okay at some point in season 1 or so. But yeah, other than that, this is a really pointless one. So we need to juice this up by quite a lot. And I have 2 options here. One is going to give it like a really big, kind of like a stacking debuff effect on the enemies. So you try to like proc, and you stack up like a really huge 8% more damage, stacking up to 10 times for the 80% total. But this would only like give you kind of like an incentive for these really long fights, when you're really fighting something for a while, like a Rift Guardian or so. It could be kind of like in a Rift Guardian killer build maybe, where you stack it up, or when you have like a really high procking like AoE build for pushing, so you try to make a pull and you stack up Murine everywhere. So something like this. I think you could just use it very effectively. Then it also gives you healing, so that's kind of like a neat addition. And you also have this like automatic smite enemies every few seconds, so maybe that could also refresh these stacks or something like that. Who knows? Just an idea here. And the other one would be to give you random shrine effects. I think for certain builds that could be extremely powerful, something like Empower Shrine, where you get 50% CDR and so on, and 100% extra resources. So if you actually manage to kind of keep up those shrines, you have Protection Shrine, Frenzy Shrine, whatever. I think that kind of goes well with the theme as well, to kind of like bless you with holy power or something like this. So might be neat, and it's a little bit different than just straight up buffing your damage or your defense a little bit. So it would be nice, and as long as you can kind of keep up those buffs, depending on how much you proc, that would be pretty nice. Molten Wildebeest, I really like that gem. I think that just the way it works, and also the way it enables kind of like these squirt builds and other things, is pretty neat. And I think I would double down on this effect, and also give an incentive to stay at full health. Not just with the shield and so on with squirts, but just in general, give it like a nice offensive bonus, and that might enable more of these builds that right now have a hard time pushing with anything besides like a Flavor of Time. But like this, you can maybe try to actually go squirts versus Flavor on a lot more pushing builds, where you might not always keep it up, but you might be able to keep it sometimes when you're careful, when you have like kind of easy targets and so on. And I think this would kind of increase the skill ceiling a little bit for certain builds as well. So that's always nice to have. Pain Enhancer, it's overall a pretty decent gem. It's used for certain, especially AoE clearing builds in groups. And yeah, I think overall this is fine, but there could be a little bit more like it. And I really don't like the inconsistency of this one. So I think that if you have something like, in fact, where if you have at least one elite enemy bleeding, you get 15 extra stacks. That will give you 45% attack speed. So it would still make it overall maybe only half as strong as something like a Trapped in most cases. But then of course you can make a huge pull and get a lot more attack speed. And I think that just having kind of like a little bit of a minimum effect would help out this gem quite a lot here. And maybe you can cap it out even at some point, but I don't think that's necessary, because typically when you have these large pulls, you will decimate it really fast anyway for area damage through your attack speed, and then it doesn't really matter that much that there's no cap, because, well, it just disappears very fast. Ice Blink, I think this could be made into like an actual DPS gem as well. So right now this is only a support gem, because you give 10% crit chance to your party members. And I think why not also make it viable for any kind of like cold builds or something for yourself, and double down on this crit mechanic. So I just made it your critical hits deal 70% increased damage. So this is actually stronger than a Trapped, but you have to keep in mind, getting to a value where this would actually overcome a Trapped is kind of hard, because well, you also deal damage with non-crits. It's not that much, it's a little part of it, but it does do something. Maybe this value could be reduced a little bit to something like a critical hits deal 60% increased damage, because you also get a 10% crit here and so on. But I figured, why not? Definitely a pretty nice choice, and would be a little bit different as well. Toxin, also here I figured, this could be made into some like kind of like dot over time, slowly whittling down enemies effect. So a little bit like the Marionette with the stacking. So you have like increased damage taken by your attacks and so on. I gave it a really long duration to actually reach that maximum. So you can get to up to 80%, but only after 20 seconds of stacking. And it also has like another supportive choice here as well with attack speed reduction for enemies. So I figured, why not? It could be removed again, but I felt that was pretty neat to balance it out a little bit in that way. Enforcer, this is like the pet gem, so generally every pet build uses this anyway, so it doesn't really need a big buff, but I think it could be kind of like made a little bit more active for these pet builds, where when you damage a target, your pets will also deal a little bit more damage to them, so that might be quite nice then. Alright, then we have the Invigorating Gemstone. This is also one of the really useless ones. So there are maybe 1 or 2 cases where this has been used that I remember, but typically it was only for this crowd control immunity. The healing was completely useless in most cases. It's a very small effect. I think overall, when you have like 10 stacks of the maximum gem, it's like plus 40% healing or so. Yeah, I mean, that's okay, it does something, but in the end, it's kind of not enough. So I figured that you could double down on this healing effect, make it so that your damage is increased when you restore health, or maybe this could even be with overhealing as well, so you don't actually have to take damage on purpose. So that just in general, you get a kind of like a stacking buff effect that gives you up to 50% extra damage. And then this could, advance to some kind of option where, with some builds that really struggle with CCs, something like Necromancer builds in most cases also, where you don't have CC immunity, they could use it as kind of like a decent choice, and maybe drop something like the Trap for it or so, and yeah, that could help them out here. Legacy of Dreams, this is a special choice here. I was inspired by the season 20 theme here, and I just made it so that you may now select any available legendary power in your Canon's Cube armor slot. You could also maybe broaden this up a little bit so that you can kind of have any kind of duplicate, so maybe 2 weapons plus a ring, or 2 rings plus an armor slot, or whatever, and kind of give people a little more option like this as long as you're wearing this gem. So I basically just included yet another season theme into this gem, and I figured, why not? It gives people more freedom to build their characters, especially on AoE builds, especially if they want to make some wacky non-meta builds. So why not? I think that's pretty awesome. And overall, this is a solid choice. It's basically a must-have for any kind of like these AoE builds because of how strong this one is. But it will also maybe enable a little more interesting combos in certain ways here, to not make it as ridiculous as the season 20 bonus where you can just cube feed weapons or whatever. I just want to make it 2, and that would also probably not break too many like balancing concerns. So there's that. And lastly, Gem of Ease, the final gem here. While below maximum character level, you take 80% reduced damage. I thought that it might encourage people to just boost their own characters a little bit more instead of always asking for others, so they can help themselves a little bit more like this. It's not really a big issue, and those people that like to level themselves, they can do it rather easily with this. But I figured that it just helps you out a little bit, because you go into Torment 6 and you get one-shot by everything. You also one-shot everything, but just make it a bit more convenient. Yeah, and that's about it. So these were all my ideas here. I did discuss them with other people and so on a little bit. There's definitely a lot of other really cool ideas that could be done. There's even like whole new legendary gems. I think I have like a list of a bunch somewhere as well, where I was just like completely revamp or like completely create new ones as well. But who knows? Maybe we'll see some new ones. There was actually a hint recently that maybe something might be coming. But I figured that, it still wouldn't solve the issue of so many legendary gems being rather pointless. And I would really like to see, a lot more of these different options here. Yeah, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my ideas here. And let me know what you think. I would be quite curious if you have your own ideas, if you have your own gems, your own whatever. Maybe you like something really well. Maybe you think something's really crappy and you have a better idea. So I'm always curious, and maybe Blizzard will listen. Maybe they will be inspired a little bit. Who knows? So hope you like this video. See you guys next time.